Welcome to Solly
and Gauta
UNCUT. Dear South Africans, good day. Today we're going to continue that discussion we started last week about corruption in South Africa and what it's doing to our country. You would have seen all the recent movements in the African National Congress that culminated in President Ramaphosa making some pronouncements that give some promise. Are they really now going to clamp down on corruption, or is this just another game they're playing with us? This morning you will see that we have a very interesting guest, Pauli van Wyk, a very known investigative journalist in South Africa who has a finger on the pulse all the time. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this.
There is a strong public pleasure that those who are implicated in state capture should face justice.
An effective criminal justice system is really important. It plays a really crucial role in trying to serve as a deterrent. And as you know, people have said, one of the most effective deterrents to any crime is the certainty of detection and that there will be a solid investigation and a prosecution.
Cadres of the movement who are formally charged for corruption or other serious crimes must immediately step aside from all leadership positions in the ANC, in legislatures, or other government structures.
A lot of the evidence being in the public domain does not mean that it is legally admissible in court. And that is a very, very important issue. The fact that something may be reported on, we have to make sure we get it in a way that makes it legally admissible in court. And that is exactly what we're trying to do now.
Pauli, what do you think? You have investigated the VBS. You have reported about the EFF and the ANC leaders having their fingers in the cookie jar. What do you think the NPA can do this time?
So, Gauta, why the ANC is harboring people who allegedly committed serious crimes cannot be underplayed, especially in the VBA saga. We're talking about Florence Radzelani and Danny Msizo, who have managerial and leader positions in the ANC, who is now back in the ANC after 2 years of suspension, granted because there seemed to be no movement relating to any criminal charges against them. And we have to ask why the NPA is taking long. Now, that takes us down a path where in the past 10 years, the Hawks, the police, and the prosecuting authority has been decimated. Their capacity has been decimated. The way they do their investigations has been decimated. It's difficult for them to put a prosecutable case together. We can see that, and we've noticed it, and we've experienced that over the past 10 years. But this is where they need to turn things around. Problem is that it takes long. It takes long to put a proper case to the NPA, to make a decision about that case, and to then put it through court. The problem here, and just to stand still quickly with how you compile a prosecutable case, it's very easy for journalists to say, I have the bank statements, I can see the money flowing, I know that this person received in a criminal way this amount of money, and then it was distributed in 10 ways, and then 10 more people benefited illegally. I said that in 3-4 sentences, but that process will take the NPA and the Hawks months to prove, because they need to get documents in the correct way. They need to ensure that the legal process is followed so that a judge or a magistrate won't in the end throw out the case because the investigation was bungled. Now we understand that. The NPA, however, need to ensure that people also have faith in them, because South Africans have a bubbling anger, and that's why, in the end, the ANC reacted. The people of South Africa are angry, and they want to see justice, and they want to see justice be done.
Solly, how would one believe that the ANC will be able to deal with corruption when itself has been implicated in the procurement of locomotives in Prasa, has been implicated in Eskom, the building of power stations where Chancellor House was reported to have received 85 million rand from the daughter of Angolan President Eduardo dos Santos. Now, with the ruling party at the highest level has been implicated in major corruption, how can the leaders who have been so implicated be the ones who lead society, who lead the transformation of the public service in the rooting out corruption?
I want to touch on two things. First, on what Pauli said earlier, we need to have a dedicated discussion about the NPA, and we know that it's been damaged in the past. We know that they need all that information to make their cases watertight in court, but we also know that they have to work with the hawks. The hawks have a political head who cannot be trusted. To what extent are the hawks really prepared to play their part, to investigate cases, to bring them to the NPA in a way that they can, pass whatever test they need to go through in order to be prosecutable, as it were? We don't know that. But I think that Shamila Batohi has also not done herself a lot of favors. She seems to be giving excuses all the time, even though a part of us understands that some of these things need to take time. They have to be done properly. But she seems to be giving excuses all the time. South Africans are tired. South Africans are tired of people sitting in those lofty positions, getting all those huge salaries, but not delivering what needs to be delivered to get this country to move forward. I think these people have to wake up.
What do you think about the National Executive Committee statement of the ANC, the number of promises that they've made?
Well, the promises that we refer to would include that ANC members must be willing to provide their financials for scrutiny, that you're not allowed to do business with the state if you're an ANC member, and especially in a leading position, and that the ANC must take a tough line on corruption. Now, these are all welcome things to say. It has been said in the past 25 years, a lot of times, and the problem that we're sitting with is whether the ANC will pull through this time. Why did they wait? Why did we have a pandemic to push them into making hard statements? Because remember, it was actually the people of this country who told them that we had enough now after a spate of PPE contracts given to well-known ANC leaders and their kids. So why did we have to wait for a pandemic to push the ANC towards a hard line against corruption? And are they serious?
Corruption is a matter of culture. It is embedded in the African National Congress and society. It will take more than just a meeting of the ruling party to really break this culture. Now, it is very difficult for me as an observer to believe that the African National Congress has finally seen its Damascus. The corruption is embedded in the manner in which the ANC operates, and it has destroyed the economy, has destroyed state-owned companies, it has destroyed the infrastructure in South Africa, and it is in the operations of the African National Congress. The vote buying, the membership rigging, the succession debates, the succession processes, the conferences are fueled by corruption. Now, Solly, without institutional mechanisms being put in place, without the president using his own charismatic and institutional authority, how do you think the ANC could be able to provide the ethical leadership that this country needs in tackling corruption?
Look, I don't believe that the solutions that South Africa seeks are going to come from the African National Congress. We talk about individuals who are implicated in crime, right? We know those names. Some of them are sitting at home, some of them are back in the system, some of them are in the party actively making speeches every day. But very little gets said about what percentage of the money that was stolen through state capture went to the African National Congress. We haven't had that discussion. And maybe that's why the ANC has spent the past, all the time when Zuma was in the presidency, defending this man. I mean, they've had 10 opportunities, 8 in the National Assembly, 2 in the NEC, to get rid of this man. They didn't. They defended him, even despite all the evidence that was there that this man, the ANC under his leadership was not good for South Africa anymore. So maybe we should ask ourselves, how much of the money that's been stolen by the Guptas, by others in the system, was contributed to the party? And maybe we'll never get answers to those questions. Maybe that's why the ANC is dragging its feet. They know that they're at a point now of whataboutism, heightened whataboutism. Anyone pointing a finger to anybody about corruption, state capture implications, and all that, will have another finger pointed at them to say, but what about you? What about your friend? What about your family? So we need a total change in South Africa for there to be credible actions taken against what happened in the past and what's continuing to happen now in the PPEs and all those people that Pauli referred to that are now back into the system. They're in KZN, they're in Limpopo. The ANC is too afraid to stand up and show us what it's sitting on, and for there to be proper cleaning up of the system. That is what worries me.
Yes, it is interesting that many of the office bearers of the African National Congress, like the Secretary General of the ANC, are implicated in serious corruption. He is specifically in the Estina matter. Now, for somebody at that level of society to be able to provide the ethical leadership necessary, to be able to provide the NPA and the Hawks with the space to do their job, it's unbelievable for us to start believing that he or anybody else at that level can be trusted to provide that space. Now, Pauli, have you been able to see movement on the VBS matter?
Yes, so the National Prosecuting Authority arrested 9 people. The first 8 people were arrested because they were the bank managers, the auditors, the executive directors of the bank. So on the one hand, they were the people who literally pushed the button, stealing the money. And on the other hand, they were also the people who hid the crime. So these were the architects of the theft at VBS Bank. The 9th person was a person in the municipalities in Johannesburg, arrested for a contract that they signed. So we were told that we could expect more arrests. It's been a while now, so we haven't heard anything other than those 9 arrests for the past months. And we are waiting impatiently.
There are about 10 municipalities in the Northwest who are involved in the VBS saga. And the paper trail is there. One wonders why the Hawks and the NPA have not charged the mayors, the municipal managers. There are other low-hanging fruits, like the Prasa locomotives matter, like Tegeta, which the NPA and the Hawks have not acted upon. Now, this gives credence to the allegation that the NPA and the Hawks are captured. Having been hollowed out by the Zuma regime, they are still hobbled by the African National Congress oversight, by the control which the African National Congress has over them. It is a monumental blunder on the part of the NPA to have taken the Estina matter to court even when it was not ready. One thinks that it was a sabotage. They were serving the interests of the leadership of the Free State. Now, for the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress to make such promises, one suspects that they made those promises in order to hoodwink the public, because now the church and the business community and the IMF were complaining, were suspicious. The United States military was is on record as saying that they don't trust South Africa to distribute personal protection equipment. Now, it is, in my opinion, necessary for Ramaphosa to come clean. It is necessary for Batohi to come clean. Why have they been dragging their feet? We need answers. Do we need a new National Director of Public Prosecution? Do we need 9 new provincial directors of public prosecutions or what?
The president made some pronouncements. He said those people who are charged with wrongdoing, corruption must step aside. Now, there's a technicality there, okay? The technicality says you have to be charged first, not just accused, not just to be accused or to be implicated in wrongdoing. This means that the ball has been kicked right into Batohi's court, into the NPA's court. I don't know how many years of a contract Batohi is left with, okay? And that is important. How much time is she left with? How much work can she still do in the time that she's left with? What if she gets to the point where, as she's about to pounce, assuming that she will get to that stage, her contract ends and they have to take their time appointing somebody else who's going to be malleable to make sure that she or he takes another 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they do anything, and nothing really gets to happen. I want to know what Batohi says, and her team, Kronye, the lady who's heading up the investigative unit of the NPA. What do they say when they look at themselves in the mirror? What do they want their legacy to be? What do they want to be remembered for? I'm tired of low-hanging fruit. This is what we see, all this low-hanging fruit getting arrested, and soon they go back to work and they're also suspended on pay, full pay. Don't you think that people want to see political heads who've benefited from or abetted and aided these crimes that have happened? Don't you think South Africans want to see one of those being pulled into the courts, including the leaders of the EFF? I know that so far everybody's playing on technicalities and I've not been charged. We don't know where things are going. And obviously the NPA doesn't want to tell us who is going to be invested or who's going to be arrested, who might be arrested. Maybe they're right to do so. They have to be careful. But Pauli, don't you think that South Africans want big names, not just the little officials?
Yes, absolutely. People want justice for the Istina saga, where poor farmers in the Free State's money and chance of a future was stolen. People want the politicians involved in the VBA's theft, where poor people in Limpopo's future was stolen. They want justice for that. And people are now angry. They're at a point where they say this, we've had enough now. Now there are 2 things then, one on the state side and one on the ANC as the governing party side to keep in mind. On the state side, we need stability. We need the NDPP, Shamila Batohi, in her position to stay there and to ensure that she has a proper team installed in order to have a grab and a hold on corruption. The problem with the matter is that Shamila Batohi is not the only person that can make a difference. Changing her is not going to do anything other than destabilizing the NPA from the start again. What we need is stability in the provinces, and the mid-level to senior management need to start doing their job, be people who are faithful to the people of this country and not faithful to the politicians of this country. And we need people who can do the job, who have the ability to do the job. And they need for continuity to stay in their jobs for a full term. That is a matter on the state side. On the ANC side, and we must remember never to conflate the 2 ideas, but on the ANC side, as a party, we need to ask a very hard question. What will the Integrity Commission do? Will their investigations and their findings be binding? And that will be one of the most important questions coming out of this weekend. If the Integrity Commission makes a decision, will the ANC leaders just be able to say, I'm not going to listen to this and I'm going forward? Because that's what they've always done. Or will they have no other choice either to contest it in court or to vacate their positions?
The matter of the Integrity Commission, For the ANC to be expected to investigate itself is something that really we must throw it out. It is not possible for the ANC to investigate itself, find itself guilty, or because all those people who are involved in this are leaders. They control the levers of power. They control the way the ANC operates. The Integrity Commission has no power, as Jesse Duarte said in the weekend. It has no power to prosecute anybody. It has no power to pass a judgment on the guilt or innocence of any person. So it's a toothless dog. And the ANC itself has made sure that the disciplinary committee is dysfunctional. But I also want to bring in the third leg in this case, which is the social movements. The public must stand up because it is their money which is being stolen. It is the black people who bear the disproportionate brunt of the corruption that is going on. It is the infrastructure budgets, it is the education budgets that are being stolen. Because the bulk of the public service budget is dedicated to basic needs, of whom the majority are black people. And it is this money which is allocated to infrastructure in villages and townships, which is being stolen. Now, social movements must stand up and take the fight to the state, to the ANC, to make sure that the fight against corruption comes from the ground upwards.
You know what? I'm way past the point where we should be looking at issues from the perspective of these are black people issues, white people issues, colored people issues. The fact is that that kind of discourse helps the people in power. Okay, South African social movements, civil society movements must gather, and race must not be part of it. The fact of the matter is the bad leadership that we have in South Africa affects us all. The rich and the poor. We are part of one ecosystem, whether we like it or not. If one part of the ecosystem is malfunctioning, the other parts are going to be affected. If people with lots of money decide, you know what, why must I continue to pay my taxes in a country like this, where it gets stolen anyway, or where bodies of the politicians who are crooks are allowed to get away without paying their share? Why must I contribute? So we have to have a discussion about the state of our tax revenue. From about 12 years ago, it's when Zuma came into power, it's been going down. The SARS has not been able to meet its revenue collection targets, and it's not going to do it again this year. Now, we have to say, all of us are affected by this. When that bucket of revenue continues to drop, it means that the state is not able to fund its programs. And the programs are not just for black people. We need to move away from this, because this is the discourse of politicians. So black people, no, South Africans, you are affected by what's going on in South Africa. South Africans, you need to unite against it. South Africans, you must refuse to be divided on the basis of race. And there are colored populations that are poor, that are struggling, that correctly feel marginalized. There are poor white people as well, increasingly over in South Africa. So we must talk about South Africans, irrespective of color. Okay, and talk about issues that affect us all, because our country has been led astray. Okay, if we continue playing the race thing, we're not going to get out of it. Actually, the more we do it, the more this guy feels justified to say our people, and our people are these ones who look like us. Everybody else can go to hell, which is nonsense. I'm sorry.
I agree. The reason I bring up the matter of black people being the ones who are being robbed, who are being cheated more than other races, is because they are the beneficiaries of the bulk of the budget of the state. And the ANC is using this black constituency as a voting fodder, but at the same time, it is cheating these people. So on that note, I think we have done justice to our conversation today.
Today was great. I mean, as we continue these discussions, there's so much more to bring into them. And there's even more excitement for me to have you, Pauli, here as part of this discussion, because you have your finger on the pulse. You investigating these things every day. I'm sure your investigative work touches on a whole lot of other interesting topics out there. But thank you for being part of this, and I really look forward to hopefully having you again in the future to talk about other things.
Thank you, Solly and Gauta.
For notifications about the next episode, subscribe by clicking on the red button below the video.
Guys, thank you for following this discussion again. It's been wonderful. We hope to see more of your views and comments on these discussions. Continue to follow us on Solly and Gauta.